following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network.
This is PBA champion Kyle Troop, and you're listening to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. As you know, JP Jr. used to be introduced as the sexiest man in bowling, and now the world. But he doesn't have the best hair in the world. I do. Sorry, bud, but you know the deal. Pick it out. Fear the fro, baby.
Welcome to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. A hard-hitting, in-depth, cutting-edge look into the world of bowling. This podcast will not only cover all things bowling, but will also give you a raw look into real-life issues. You'll get unfettered access into the mind of one of the most gifted bowlers of this or any other generation. So without further ado, let's introduce you to the hosts of the show. Rad Rob Francois. Rad Rob Francois. Dr. Ocho. And the incomparable Johnny Petraglia Jr. Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Hey guys, welcome back to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. This is episode number 55, and I am your host, Rad Rob Francois. I'm not even going to intro these guys. I'm just going to get right to it. I am pissed. Welcome, Johnny and Ocho. I'm very upset at what ruling the PBA has made, and we're just going to jump right into it because we thought it was bad last year with the USBC and all the crap that was going on. The PBA has decided to ban all urethane balls made prior to August 2022. Johnny, what in the blue fuck were they thinking?
Well, first of all, good morning. It's good to see you guys. Diving right into it here.
Is it morning?
Yeah, it's a line from a movie. I was just opening, but anyway.
Right on.
John, good to see you. The PBA is making a formal announcement that they're this coming season, all urethane bowling balls from all individual companies, proprietors, no longer available for use on the PBA tour. So first off, obviously the big hype and the number one that was going to scare everybody is obviously the Purple Hammer. Hi, Dan. Good to see you. Thanks for being here as always. And we're obviously already got a new run of those out on the assembly line already with a new pin color. They're changing the top of the weight block location pin from green to pink. But as far as, all right, you know me, I'm usually relatively neutral here when it comes to trying to understand both sides of the story. But
yeah,
my guess is maybe in their eyes, they seem to believe that it's going to make it a little bit more of a level playing field for everybody, because now there is no such thing as even a trick urethane ball that may have softened up over even the last few years. Maybe there's a magic storm pitch black out there that somebody's been hanging on since even 2020, let alone 2013 or the year of the production of that ball. But I personally think that the reason I brought this up when I was a guest on Mike's show last night, if it were up to me to actually decide why I think they're doing it, I haven't really come to any real conclusion as to why. But I think it's probably to stop the people that have the most say out there from bitching as much as they do in one respect, because it doesn't cease the manufacturing need for the urethane balls. If anything, it makes it more, because not only do you have to keep producing them now with however long they say you can't use them. If next year they ban anything that was out after August 1st, 2023, and the same thing happens, the mass production still has to stay there for as long as the urethane craze is here. So without immediately diving in the first 5 minutes of the show and saying that I just simply think it's another absurd, ridiculous thing on their part, I'm trying to kind of see where they're coming from. What do you guys honestly think? And then I'll kind of feed off from you from there, and we can look at a couple of questions from the guests. Derek, Kevin, good to see you guys. What do you think, Rob?
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me because, the manufacturers are going to lose a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money, and it's going to hurt a lot of, amateur bowlers as well as professional bowlers. I mean, who knows if the USBC is going to follow suit after this? They have the track record for doing that.
Well, didn't they start it?
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
If the USBC were to follow suit on it, I don't think they would be able to monitor or follow suit on anything other than the nationally recognized events.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, the Queens, USBC Open Championships, Youth Championships, maybe Team USA. But as far as local league bowling, I don't think it's going to affect anybody bowling local association tournaments or anything along those lines, even if USBC were to follow suit with the banning of it.
Who figured out that urethane was good in the last few years? Was there one person in particular? I'll see you later, Rob. Okay. Was there one person in particular that, and then everybody followed suit? Was it a lefty? Is there anybody?
It started actually about 13 years ago at the World Series of Bowling in Detroit. It was actually the year that I was rooming with Ryan Simonelli, and Storm had come out with a ball called the Natural. They were the first company in quite a long time to push a urethane bowling ball as one of their new products, the same way they would push, and the new Absolute or the new Revenant. They pushed that ball for the exact purpose it was made and designed for the classic motion of a bowling ball from yesteryear. Well, you take somebody like Ryan Simonelli in his early 20s at that point, and you give that 500 rev rate and 19 miles an hour off his hand, and friction on the gutter at 30 feet or anywhere near the gutter, all of a sudden, he had the world that week. He wound, I think he made 3 telecasts that week, and he had to come out of all the TQRs for the entire week. It got so bad that even Rhino Page openly said when he defeated Simonelli in the Viper Championship that week, he actually said that I had to throw urethane on that show because it was the only way I was going to beat Ryan, because nobody had the look that he had that week. But since then, it's been popping up here and there. But the bowlers that I personally recognize the most that have really made the biggest impact with urethane is when you watch guys like Jacob Buttriff and Jesper Svensson. And even more so, obviously, those guys are all 3 of the guys that I just mentioned are all lefties. But all 3 left-handers that I mentioned, if you look at every other left-hander on tour, the game kind of got to a point that no matter what kind of game you got on the left side of the lane, as long as you know how to throw urethane, you have the chance to be the best in the world. Now, whether that holds true week in and week out, I don't know. And I'm not trying to shit on lefties. I am a lefty myself, obviously. But I'm really, really curious to see what happens to who actually becomes the best left-handers on the tour again with this new wave. Because let's just say, for instance, let's just limit Jesper Svensson and Jacob Buttriff to, they could still throw as many urethane balls as they want on tour, but they've all got to be brand new ones. I still think they're going to win titles. I don't think it's going to change it that drastically enough to that extent. But the whole moral behind the thing, and the thing that I think is really causing it, is that the urethane era has taken over the game so much that the game has lost its identity. Like, in other words, when you go to a tournament nowadays, it doesn't matter what the pattern is anymore, because the pattern is no longer the oil pattern after the completion of practice, because half the field is throwing urethane equipment. And we all know that urethane chops up an oil pattern completely. And, as opposed to the days that everybody used to bitch about it and say, oh, this guy's throwing urethane and he's burning up the front, and now I got a wiggle spot. Or when everybody used to bitch that Belmo's rev rate was too high and they had to deal with the Belmo effect. It's just something new to bitch about. But I have a feeling that that's what's going on. That's at least my instant thoughts on it all.
Is it really going to hurt the PBA, in the end? I mean, it levels the playing field for everybody, but like you said, it doesn't help the lefties. They're not burning up the oil as much as anybody else because there's not many lefties out there, and that's what a lot of people in the league bitch about is all the people using urethane and burning up all the oil by the end of the first game, and they got nowhere to shoot. They don't know how to adjust. But I don't think it's going to hurt the PBA that much. I do think it's going to piss a lot of people off, especially the ball reps like hammer, and yourself with Brunswick, and it's not good for them. And I don't know what reaction the ball manufacturers are going to have, or if they've even made any statements yet. But I can't imagine they're going to be quiet about it. Do you think, Johnny?
This to me is not as drastic as what they did at the Masters. Like, at least they're publicly announcing it
ahead of time,
a little bit ahead of time. I mean, the U.S. Open is what, a week away, so. But at least they gave him a little bit of leeway this time. But this isn't as drastic to me, because at least they're not singling out a handful of players at one event for specific balls being quote unquote softer. And now at least what they're trying to do is say, you know what, these urethane balls, even though they test legal, once they go down the lane X amount of times and they've done their due diligence on the lanes, and a couple of years go by and now their softness levels are too low. Is it crazy for us to monitor and check every single one? Like, maybe some still come in legal, some are slightly below, but we can't even risk that chance, because if the best bowler in the world even has one urethane bowling ball that's a tenth below the hardness number that's allowed, he has a slight advantage over the field. I think maybe they were trying to figure out a way to even the playing field completely without pissing off a specific group of people. Because whether you're left-handed or right-handed, everybody on tour nowadays throws urethane. Everybody starts tournaments with urethane. Two-handers go into tournaments, and one of the tricks in their bag is to throw it back up with urethane.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's so many ways to manipulate a bowling lane, a lane surface, a lane pattern, when you have a ball that's done hooking halfway down the lane and you combine it with raw talent. So, to me, I don't think it's as horrid of a rule that they could have introduced. Do I still think it's absurd? Absolutely. If I want to go out and drill 5 brand new rubber LT48s, even though they don't have a weight block in them, they still, they were produced in the mid 70s, and they probably make the soft number now, but is that ball going to be illegal too? Eventually, are you going to ban certain loads of resin into a ball? Are we really trying to work towards giving everybody the exact same ball and just have at it and get rid of it? I'm curious to see where they go from here with it.
I feel like that's what they are doing, Johnny, because maybe that would be a step towards trying to get into the Olympics. To legitimize it as a sport and not a hobby. If you have one ball for everybody, but then obviously you still take into account lefties and righties, and they're what's sort of looking there's not as many fucking lefties as righties. So I don't think that will ever, I don't think it'll ever get into the Olympics. But if what we're seeing, they're not banning all urethane. They're going to continue to still make urethane balls. They just can't use them prior to August. Balls that were made prior to August 2022. Do you see this as just a stepping stone for them to kind of inch their way into banning urethane? Period.
It seems like it. It does. But that would just be insane. I mean, urethane was here before resin, and I mean, there's JD say, yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's going to be a full ban. Like I said, I think they're just trying, especially at that tour level, man. I have a feeling that they're just trying to silence all the people that really just despise urethane at the pinnacle level. And nowadays, it seems like the thing to do to cater to everybody and try and make everybody happy. Apparently, we negotiate with terrorists these days. So it's gotten to a point for me, at least in my brain, is, do I think it's absolutely idiotic? Yeah, I do. I think it's idiotic to say, oh, by the way, the weapons you've been using that have been helping you all this time, that have been perfectly legal, still are perfectly legal. Less than 2 weeks ago, they made the old hammers that they made illegal legal again. Did you guys know about that?
No.
Remember that whole thing? Yeah, they made those legal again, and then a few weeks later, they released this information that none of them are even legal on the PBA tour. So I don't even think they know what they're doing. I think the same way our next topic is going to really show you that they don't know what they're doing. Or let me be a little bit more modest here. Maybe they do know what they're doing, but from the outside looking in and based off the history of the way things are compiling, it's not looking too good.
We mentioned it last time with the USBC that, like, hey, maybe down the line they're going to tell us what the whole premise was behind it, and no one ever said a word. So that whole thing from last year still baffles people.
Yeah, and we're still left in the dark about that one too.
Yeah.
That they just randomly pulled 100.
We gave him like the teeniest benefit of the doubt and said, maybe there's somebody wicked smart and they're going to tell us. And in 6 months, 8 months, we're going to go, oh, that made a little bit of sense. And they're doubling down basically.
But remember, Oach, that was the USBC. That wasn't the PBA.
Right. And the PBA didn't follow suit with that.
Right.
Moving on to our next topic, the PBA is giving exemptions to the US Open this year to Mookie Betts and Jimmie Allen, who are a baseball player and country music artist, respectively, which kind of opens the door. Should that open the door to anybody, or are they just getting it, Johnny, because of their status?
You want me to start here?
Well, Mookie Betts can he threw a 300 at the World Series of Bowling when he joined in it, I think, 1 year.
Regardless, he's not a PBA member, so that's the issue that I have. What say you, Johnny?
Okay, I'll compile my issues. The first one is it's the U.S. Open, or at least it used to be. The U.S. Open has had.
Anybody get in it?
Yeah, there were. I mean, even when the field was 240 players back in the 80s, when it was 400 plus players in the Cavalier years, whatever it is, the U.S. Open was always an open. It was always available to everybody to bowl that at least maintained certain specs within the bowling industry, right? Average related, things along those lines. So JD was here to hear my rant last night. I think I may be softer because I was on fire last night. But in regards to that, so now the U.S. Open is no longer an open. Now it's the U.S. Open Invitational. And it's an invitational that legitimately motherfucks people that are worthy of the position, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by that is the field is 108 players. 17 of those 108 players in this U.S. Invitational are coming out of the PTQ, which is, I believe, a 7 or 8 game format right before the start of the tournament. And the PTQ has a waiting list, like most PBA events do, because even though we always bitch about bowling and how nobody's interested in bowling anymore, there's always enough bowlers to show up that there's a waiting list on the PTQ. There's always a couple hundred people in the United States that want to go bowl a tournament. So I don't like that they always say, well, if we're doing so bad, why do we always have, log jams? There's log jams at Disney World, guys, to get on the log flume. I mean, it's a one and done thing. But what I got here out of this is this. I'm going to use a couple people to cite my example here. Now you have the U.S. Invitational. I believe 5 or 6 of those spots were given to Junior Team USA members, which kudos to the kids, for making Junior Team and being offered that opportunity, but they're not deserving of it yet. Not yet. Or at least not as deserving in my eyes as other people like Robert Smith and Robert Lawrence, to name just 2. Mike Scroggins to add a third. There's 3 professional bowlers who are all U.S. Open champions. Robert Lawrence, I know for a fact, was told when he won in 1992 that one of the perks of winning the U.S. Open was it was a lifetime exemption, that he had the ability to wake up even if he was 85 years old and say, you know what, I feel like bowling the U.S. Open this year. I'm going to go bowl. He could. The same way Carmen Salvino was bowling the TSC for all those years. The same way to this day, if Jack Nicklaus walked out to Augusta and said, hey, I'd like to play in the Masters this year. I'd like to play before I die. Even if the field was 108, they would make it a 109 spot because it's Jack Nicklaus, right? At least based off the credentials that you previously set. So let's leave all that aside. So some of the legends of our sport have to bowl the PTQ if they even want to bowl the tournament. Here's a prime example, Norm Duke. Norm Duke has to bowl the PTQ if he wants to bowl the U.S. Open, even though he retired, okay? If that's not shitty enough in itself, what they decided to do was they had that vacant spot to just automatically be entered into the U.S. Invitational this year, and it was given to Mookie Betts. And I want to make sure that I make this known. I love Mookie Betts. A world-class baseball player, one of my favorite baseball players. He is absolutely in love with bowling. He's a great bowler, and I certainly think he has a chance to cash. I sure do. But do I think that Mookie Betts was more deserving of a spot for a bowling tournament with a 108-man field with $100,000 on first place prize check, which is life-changing money to a lot of people? Do I think he's more deserving than even any of the three guys that I just mentioned? Absolutely
and
not.
it's a week's pay for him. That's the other thing. Mookie Betts is a multi millionaire. He makes $23 million a year, I think, somewhere around there. So maybe even more. So it's a day in the park for him.
Right. So this is just the start. So they give the spot to Mookie. The PTQ, as I said, the pre-tournament qualifier to actually get into the field for the U.S. Open, also has a waiting list. But one of the people that got to skip that waiting list is new or up-and-coming country music artist of the year and 3 #1 hits, thanks Derek Mashad for letting me know yesterday, Jimmie Allen. And they give away a PTQ spot to him. Now, it's been made mention across a couple different platforms that Mookie denied the spot that he was given, that he even flat out said give it to somebody else, but at the end of the day, he did wind up taking it. And I think that had a lot to do with the PBA begging him to. And I'm not sure what happened with Jimmie Allen as far as the PTQ spot, but here is what I said yesterday, because everybody's asking me how I feel about it. And the truth is, guys, how I feel about it is the guys in the head office of bowling are still, to this day, trying to make bowling cool the incorrect way. They think if cool people bowl, that bowling automatically becomes cool and brings in fans. So they're willing to literally fuck 300 bowlers and cut a field to 108 and then fuck 17 other champions and give those positions to PTQ bowlers, one of which is a guy who's well known in the country music industry, and then give another spot away to a world-class baseball star. And they're telling these other guys, your chance at life-changing money this year is out the window, because we know Jimmie Allen and Mookie Betts can make us more money and probably get us more fame or get us more popular. And they're doing it to line their own pockets. They're doing it. Now, if it works, wonderful. But if it was going to work, then more fans would show up to watch the Chris Paul Celebrity Invitational, other than the players' wives and the agents, who are the only people I ever see at those events.
I was actually going to say just exactly what JD said. Like, they may show a highlight, a 2-second highlight of Mookie Betts in this Jimmie Allen bowling, because rarely do they show much of the qualifying or the blocks of games on TV anyway. So they're going to have it in the studio. And
I want to jump in there, because with the new deal with Bowl TV, I believe the entire qualifying will be televised on that, right?
So It's already bowling fans that are watching, though. That
exactly.
No dude is going to be watching Bowl TV. They're going to be watching on on whatever channel, Fox or something like that. So whatever.
Well, I'm just wanting to get more people to subscribe if they know that their favorite artist or favorite baseball player is going to be on it. So I think they're going to try to drive sales for the subscription.
Yeah.
So that still doesn't do anything for bowling. Does it? Well, he already said it's for lining their pockets too. So I didn't know there was only 108 people either. I thought the U.S. Open was the big gimmick, and I thought it was 400 dudes in there, 4 dudes or chicks.
What I said yesterday is exactly how I feel, and I'm going to mention it now, because I thought about this overnight after I said it yesterday, because a lot of people say, oh, you don't really know what you would do until you're in a certain situation. Well, with all due respect, I've been in enough situations in my life that I know what I would do. And I at least know the kinds of people that I admire and I look up to who would probably do this. I am surprised that people like Mookie Betts and Jimmie Allen, who are not only good at their craft, but like good people. They're genuine good people. They're like J.J. Watt. They're like a Mike Piazza or the late Kirby Puckett. They're good people, and they're fantastic in their crafts, right? I'm very surprised that in the midst of everybody saying, well, Mookie didn't want the spot. He just wanted to enter the PTQ like everybody else. I wish Mookie would have stood up and said, Tom Clark, with all due respect, if you want me to be here, I'll be here for the week. I'll be your sideline reporter on the show, on the live show. I'll make an Instagram and a Twitter post every single day of random pictures with the bowlers. I'll invite 50 of my closest friends and ask 50 of their closest friends to bring 50 friends. That way you have a packed house. I'll do anything along those lines. I'll be in the presence of, because Mookie's the kind of person that loves bowling enough that he would do that. And that would get way more exposure to the sport, because now the sport is big enough that one of the biggest baseball players in the world that one of the biggest baseball players in the world wants to be in the bowling alley for the week of the U.S. Open. I'm surprised that neither of them turned around and said, you know what, put us on the waiting list like everybody else, but please don't give up an actual tournament spot to me and take it away from somebody else who could win life-changing money this week. So I think that I don't think in the end it's going to hurt anything. It certainly doesn't hurt bowling to have Mookie Betts and Jimmie Allen in the field. Do I think that random fans of baseball and country music are going to go download Bowl TV and watch them bowl? Fuck no. Absolutely not. And if they do, it's not going to change the ratings enough. I'm obviously perturbed about it. I'm obviously because I'm for, I don't want to say the little guy, but I'm for the guy that has put more time in. I think it's sickening to think about the amount of bowling friends that I call family that are sitting at home saying, I've been doing this for my entire life, and I won this event. I won the hardest bowling tournament, what used to be the hardest bowling tournament in the world to win, and I got to go sit on a waiting list for a PTQ while a guy I've never heard of that can strum a guitar is out there bowling. I could see them throwing shit at the television. Like being selected to go into the Hunger Games a second time after you already won. Like that's like what the jab has got to feel like to those guys. So I don't like it.
After Jimmie Allen strikes, what song do you think he's going to play?
Probably one that I don't know. Because honestly, the only reason I know who he is because this is what I love about social media. I love this about social media. So there were people taking pictures like, oh my God, look who we spotted at the bowling alley. Holy shit, can't believe he walked in. And like you see 15 people write, who is that? Who is that? And then you get the one random person that says, what do you mean you don't know who that is? That's Jimmie Allen. And then 15 more people write, who's Jimmie Allen? And then I come to find out he won like up and coming country, like new country music artist this past year. So if you like country music, you may still not know who the fuck he is. So I don't like those people that are trying to tell everybody else that we're supposed to know somebody that we shouldn't know on top of it all.
Well, Derek knows who he is. He has an opinion on which song that
Derek likes country music. He's a country music buff. I know who Colin Champion is, and I know how fantastic of a bowler he is. But nobody knows. A lot more people know who Norm Duke is than Colin Champion. That's what I mean. Is if you're a diehard, you're a diehard. But that's if you're a diehard. Anyway, that's what I'm getting.
I'd watch if it was John Michael Montgomery, but that's just me.
Yeah, or Tim McGraw or something like that. I mean,
he's a poser.
Jason, I do know he was there, and I think that was awesome for that event. I really, really do.
We're not downplaying what Jimmy's doing for the sport because obviously he has a lot of passion for it, and he is bringing a lot of eyes to it. He's doing tours around the country. He did one here locally where I am.
Exactly.
But it's the PBA and it's the U.S. Open. It's a major for fuck's sake.
What you just said, Rob. You could give Jimmie Allen and Mookie Betts a commissioner's exemption to every single event for the rest of the year. Every single one.
Yeah, put them on like the Geico whatever tournament or whatever, something like that.
Yeah. You could put them at every stop if you want to. Christ, they did everything they could to get Belmo through as many PTQs as they could because they wanted the world to see him. Yeah. And then what did Belmo do? The world saw him, and he's the best bowler in the world. And he can't even get the traction that we need. You think I don't know what your thought process is here. And I don't mean to, and again, this is nothing against Mookie and nothing against Jimmie Allen. I mean, I'm sure Jimmy's a great musician. Obviously he is. Mookie, we know, is a fantastic ball player. But do I think that either of those guys are more deserving than anybody in the bowling world? No, I don't.
It's one of the oldest events. In fact, maybe the oldest event. It's a sacred event. It really is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty.
I have Family Guy on, by the way.
I'd rather see Tommy Lee out there than Jimmie Allen. That's just me.
Tommy Lee, what's he going to bowl with? He's going to freaking roll that thing with his schmeckle?
He could, too.
Probably throw it harder than us.
I wouldn't know who Jimmie Allen was.
Per hour.
I wouldn't know who Jimmie Allen was if he walked down the street, or even if I saw him in a bowling alley. I literally wouldn't know who he was. Hey, whatever. That's just me. But celebrity status shouldn't matter. The fact is, it is the U.S. Open, like we said. It is the oldest event. It's a major, and they should be on the list. If they want to get in, they should be on the list like everybody else. And they should not get an exemption based on who they are and what
it's
their
demeaning. I think it's demeaning for the sport in general.
It honestly is.
If Elon Musk just randomly walked into the corporate office for the Dodgers, does Mookie still play for the Dodgers, or did he get traded?
I think he's still in the Dodgers.
Anyway, let's just say he's still a Dodger. If Elon Musk decided to walk in and say, you know what, guys, I'd really like to, play one game in the outfield for the Dodgers this year, all 9 innings. And they said, you know what? I do have a place for you, Elon, because let's compare it. Maybe Elon's too much money. Let's go with somebody I'm trying to do the comparison of bowling money to baseball money and what would be above baseball money. So maybe
say like Kevin Durant or whatever, wanted to come in and play.
Well, even that one's too close. But okay. I'm just gonna say somebody that makes more, like a shit ton more money than a baseball player, walks in.
Richard Branson.
There you go. Richard Branson walks in and says, I'd like to play left field for a game. You think you can squeeze me in? You know what? We got the perfect game. We need one more victory. It's actually the 162nd game of the season, and we need to beat the Padres, and then we clinch home field advantage in the playoffs. This would be a perfect game for you to go out there and show your stuff in left. Mookie, sit on the bench. Like it's unheard of. It just wouldn't be done. For what? Because baseball doesn't need that much more exposure. They're financially sound. Why? Just like every other sport, they have sponsors. They have sponsors that pay money, that get people into the stands and the crowds, which we don't have. So you can bring every celebrity you want in, but any businessman, once you get above the hoopla of people like loving people just because they're famous, then there actually comes the tier of the business mind and any business mind is going to say, it doesn't matter who you bring into the bowling alley. If you don't bring in the guys with the money, you're not going to make us any money, and we don't want anything that's not going to make us a profit. So you do it any which way you want, but what it all comes down to right now is the PBA is trying to squeeze whatever money they can out of everybody these days by making bowling seem more legit because it's cool and accepted in other areas of the world, in other crafts.
Oh, Joe, what say you? You're the average guy. You're the average Joe or John. Or
I'm far superior to most. What are you talking about? There's nothing I can't do. Shot 696. I mean, where's my exemption? Damn it! I bring 3 bowling balls. The only one there, and these 2. That's all I need.
Peaks.
Well, that's going to lead into another topic I have. But just to wrap up this one, what do you think of what Johnny said, or what do you think in general of them allowing Mookie and Jimmie Allen in?
That example was perfect with the Richard Branson thing. Luckily, I came up with it, but no, spot on.
That is fair.
Spot on. I think I also think that bowling should only have 5 bowling balls per person too. So I'm on the fence about other shit. That's for another day.
Okay, fair enough. That moves us to our next topic. This is a post in the USBC Bowlers discussion forum on Facebook. How would I go about getting into a PBA event if I'm not part of the PBA? Well, you could be a famous ball player or a country music star, or here's actually what the eligibility rules are for that. A participant must be a USBC member in good standing. Non-members must meet the PBA minimum average requirements of 200 for 36 games in a USBC sanctioned league. PBA members have priority over any non-member. So, Ocho, obviously, with your average and how long you've been bowling, you clearly have higher than 200 for
easily
over 36 games. So you, sir, could join the PBA tour.
Wait, it said if you're a non-USB. Wait. So
you must be non-PBA members must meet the PBA minimum average requirement for 200 and must be in good standing with USBC in the USBC league.
Because it sounded like there were 2 options, and one of them you didn't even have to have a 200 average. You just had to have like a. And there's someone who can probably get an exemption too, by the way.
My girlfriend's watching us live. She never does that.
No, never.
Can you join what? Sorry to cut you off.
She can join the PBA. She can join the PBA. Of course she could.
Absolutely. You got to see her bowl with her crown jewel.
She should be the sideline reporter. You talk about eyeballs? Come on.
For fuck's sake.
I'm sure she could do better than, even though that other chick is hot too. What's her name?
I'm assuming you're thinking of Daria.
No. The chick who does who always like stumbles on her words. She doesn't know shit about
Kimberly Pressler.
Oh, that
yeah.
chick. No.
I like her.
Here, can I put it while we're talking about Mookie Betts? Can I relate the credentials for being a PBA member to baseball?
Sure.
Yes.
You know how I always talk about the pins have been the same weight for 100 years, right? 3 pounds, 6 ounces. Everything else changes around it, and the pins just stay the same weight. A 200 average has been the staple for maintaining that average for 2 consecutive years under the USBC and even ABC flags for a long time. It has not changed.
Because it used to be hard.
Averaging 200 in league nowadays is like being asked to play on the all-star team in your Babe Ruth league when you were 13, 12, 11 years old. It was like there were probably 40 kids in your town, 30 of them tried out for baseball, and 15 of them made the team. And then 3 kids from each of the 5 teams got selected to play in the All-Star game. So you had like a 68% chance, or whatever the number was, to make it to the All-Star team if you made a team in Babe Ruth baseball. That's averaging 200. To average 210 is like making varsity as a sophomore in high school, where you probably could have been taken as a freshman, but they think maybe you need a year on JV to get your feet wet, and then you'll have a couple years before you're a senior. That way you can really maul them over and grow into your own shoes. So 210 is making varsity as a sophomore. 220 is getting accepted to a Division III or even a Division II school under a partial scholarship. 230 is playing D1 ball and being asked to come to a couple showcases and get looked at by actual scouts. What makes baseball so great is everybody in the 200, 210, 220, 230 bracket, none of them make it to the show. None of them. It's only the guys that make it through all those steps and kick everybody's ass at all those steps, and the guys that average 240, which is a way, way, way smaller percentage even today, even with how astronomical the scores are. So if you average 240, then maybe you can be J.J. Watt for football. Maybe you can be Mookie Betts in baseball. It doesn't matter. But the thing about it is they have never told a baseball player that averages 200, oh, you can 100% go get your MLB card. And you don't see people walking around showing videos of themselves swinging a bat like this saying, got my new Easton this week. Special thanks for wrapping the handle. Look at how hard I've been working. And they swing like a complete jerk off. That, like, I promise you guys, Mookie Betts is not looking at that Facebook post and giving it a like and saying, this guy should come compete against me in the Major League Baseball. It doesn't happen. So you are decent. You're making bowling. Instead of trying to make bowling show people how hard bowling is, you are trying to.
You're insulting it.
You're insulting it. That's the word. You're insulting it. And like Jim just said, like we were talking about earlier, there is so much more money in other sports. Absolutely. But if I told you right now that every year 2 or 3 guys in professional bowling are going to make $500,000 just the way Kyle Troop did, that would get more people involved in bowling, and that would get more sponsors. It always goes back to money. No matter how much everybody tries to play like money isn't everything in this, then of course money is a driving factor. 100% money is a driving factor. Even guys that go out and play golf on the weekends. I'm telling you right now, they may have no aspirations to go on tour whatsoever, but they do have an aspiration of playing 3 strokes better than they did the week before so they can take their $50 from their friend that they're playing in skins. 100%, it drives you more. Why do so many people bet on sports? Because it's more fun to watch them when you have an incentive to win something extra, right?
Right.
It's like you guys say, it's insulting to the sport of bowling to allow the Babe Ruth 13-year-old all-star to publicly announce that he's capable of playing with Mookie Betts. The same way it's improper, Rob, for you to say that you belong on the same lanes as Tommy Jones. I don't care if you average 200 in the league for 10 consecutive years. Oach, it doesn't matter, because I know people throw the ball backwards that average 200. I know people that don't even look at the bowling lane and average 200. It's insanity.
Well, let me ask you this, Johnny.
I'm reading all the comments, but now you guys got me going again, so I'm missing half of them. But sorry, I'm not as interactive with you guys tonight. I'm obviously fired up this evening. So Chipotle
the 205
went down.
minimum. The 205 minimum is pretty much for the. Is that just for the regional tour? Is that for the PBA as a whole? Can regional members bowl regular PBA tournaments?
Yes.
Okay, then why have two different tours? Just because, like, is that like? I mean, to me, that's like minor league and major league.
Okay. So the regional tour is the stepping stone. It's like playing in AAA. If you make it to AAA, that's going to be where you actually find out if you can make it on the show. For instance, here's a prime example: Tim Foy. Tim Foy Jr. I've known since we were both kids. Tim Foy has been on tour for a long time. He's younger than me, a couple of years younger than me. He's been on tour for a long time, but now he's hitting his stride. He's winning tons and tons of regionals. He's winning. He's making it to TV shows on the national tour. He's blossoming, so to speak. He's put in his time. That is a product of the regional tour. It's understanding the grind. It's understanding the transition. It's being in the element every single week. And everybody always says, trust the process. That's the process. The process is following the stepping stones and believing that you're continuing on the right track, even though you can't see the destination in front of you. You have to understand it. It's the same, like that. I always use the weightlifting reference. If you go to the gym 3 consecutive days, you will see nothing. If you go to the gym 3 consecutive weeks, you will see nothing. But if you go to the gym for 6 consecutive months, you will see something. That's that mindset. And guys like a Tim Foy and the guys in the regional program, they have that. Even the weekend warriors that go bowl. My God, my friends, when I would go out in California, I mean, they travel to local bowling events every single weekend. Those guys are badass, and the women. It may not be the regional program per se, but trust me, those tournaments that they're bowling, that NDO team, I put them up against any regional circuit. So it's available pretty much everywhere. What did Stephanie say? She said, I think the bar being so low to join the PBA also opens up the issue where now you have people joining for the sheer fact or that they want to bowl once or twice to treat it like a pro-am and hope they cross with Belmore or Kyle. Steph, that's always been the case. That's 100%, and that will always be the case, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're exactly right.
This is a good question, Johnny.
Hey, Steve. I like you a lot, but the skill gap from amateur to professional is probably smaller in bowling than every other sport. That's why people have that opinion. Golf is legitimately the toughest sport by comparison. I agree, Steve, and here's the craziest part. Toughest sport by comparison. The winner of a golf tournament over the course of 4 days typically wins by 1, 2, or 3 strokes, which means they swing the golf club 1 less time than the guy that comes in second or third. Over the span of a 56-game bowling tournament, the guy that leads the bowling tournament usually out-averages the guy in second by 3 or 4 pins a game, if that, unless they ran away with it for the tournament, which comes out to a similar percentage there. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that bowling is easier than golf or harder than golf. It is not. Golf is certainly the toughest sport by competition, 100%. I agree with you there. The only thing that golf does offer that bowling doesn't is an ability to manipulate the variables. In other words, if you hit one behind a tree, you can still hit a low laser and run it up to the green and still get up and down for par. In bowling, if you dead yank it and you go through the beak and you leave the big 4, it's 6-2. So that's the only difference that I see there. The gap, I don't know. I don't know how many +4 handicaps there are in the world. But to put it in perfect perspective, Ronnie Russell's a +2 or a +3 handicap. And he's trying or has been trying to make it on one of the golf tours. Anybody that even tries to get on a golf tour is already a god in my book. 100%. But I do respect Steve's comment there. It's actually a really, really good one.
All right, let's move on to our final topic, which I am dubbing the idiotic post. of the week. I'm not gonna say who posted this or
What did you
where.
write, Rob?
Oh, shut up, Ocho. I'm not gonna say who did it or where it was from, but it was a Facebook group. And Johnny had sent this to us in our private chat. An unknown gentleman said, 829 for the first set. Could have been a lot better. Johnny, this seemed to set you off.
Wait, that's 3 games he's talking?
And we kind of touched on this last week about bowlers being better than they actually think they are because of Ocho's big red wiffle ball bet. What do you think of this post? You're the one that brought it to us. What are your thoughts?
I've never been a fan of I'm too cool to be normal. I don't like it. First off, anybody that with no emotion, with no exclamation point, with no LOL, with no smiley face, with no nothing, just 829 first set, ... should have been a lot better, ... or could have been a lot more. First off, it couldn't have been a lot more because if you shot 830, it means you missed 3 or 4 times. So you're already wrong in that respect. It only could have been 71 pins better. And if that were the case, you would have been one of 35 people in history to accomplish that feat since the game's inception in 1895. So automatically, this statement right here, if you're one of the people that writes this, I don't like you because I don't like the way you approach life, period, in general. These are the same people that when somebody that posts a ball for sale, hey, I have this used Nirvana, I'm selling it for $75, they'd rather rip that person apart for an hour telling them that they could get 5 balls for that price and that person's an idiot for even trying to sell it, rather than informing the person, hey, man, just letting you know, that ball brand new in box undrilled is 209 or whatever it is. So, but what I'm talking about here is this, and I said this again on the show last night, and I will repeat myself. When I read this comment, I was sitting in the yard. I was sitting in my yard, and I was looking out at the pool. And I just, you know me, I'm crazy. So I imagine I had a school class in front of me, and I said, kids, by a show of hands, how many of you think that you are perfect? Can you all just raise your hand, please? Please. Nobody, right? Because nobody is perfect. Nobody on this planet is perfect. It's what makes people so great. Everybody is unique in their own individual way, and everybody's got something wrong with them. I twitch. My armpits sweat a lot. My feet smell, amongst every other thing. But there's just a couple, right? So nobody's perfect. When you write something like this says that 33 of the 36 shots I threw last night, I threw as purely as a human being possibly could. And I was given the reward that I was deserving of for those 33 balls. And for those other 3, which I also pured, I split my mark at the arrows, I split my mark at the break point, and I literally split the 8-9 on those other 3 shots that didn't strike, and they randomly got stood up as they were trying to slide off the deck. It was so nice. It just should have been so much. You are basically telling the world that you are perfect when you write this about this score. It's idiotic to me. I think I remember a time when shooting 800 was cool. I remember when it was respectful. Even when people wanted to hate you, if you bowled 800, somebody at least had the decency to come over and shake your hand. Now it's looked upon like it's just another day in the park, baby. I do this every week. If you did this every week, bro, go bowl something where the other people can hear your name. But I get excited when I shoot 770 in league.
Right, I know.
I get excited when I throw a 4-bagger because I like to throw strikes. I think it's cool. I love bowling. So of course I still get excited when I bowl. I understand what it's like to be level-headed. You know, I've got a lot of focus to do. Dude, you're bowling the military championships. This tournament is 3 games a day over 3 days. This was on the 9 a.m. squad on Tuesday. You don't bowl again until 8 p.m. on Wednesday. Like, you don't have to be so goddamn humble about it. It's not like you're going right into it and you're going to be feeding off this crazy high emotion. You can put an exclamation point in there or something. You average 270, 276, for Christ's sake. I mean,
can I read what you said to us verbatim? Because it was pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, and then I'll give you the comparison that I gave, and then I'll leave it alone at that because I could talk about this all night.
You said, no, Ted, it could have been a lot better. It could only have been better, 71 pins better. No, Ted, your 276 average could not have been better. Fucking morons.
I said this to Mike Val last night. I said, one of the things that I miss the most, with all the things that are changing in the world, I understand evolution, and I'm progressive to some extent. I love everybody. I give a fuck what anybody does. It doesn't matter. But there are some things that I really don't like as this world continues to progress, and one of them is the lack of emotion in something you supposedly love. I'm using another baseball reference because it seems to be the topic of the night. Mark McGwire, when he hit 62 to break at that time the single-season home run record. Anybody that saw that home run remembers exactly how it happened. They remember
where it was.
Low liner cleared the fence off of Steve Traxel, and he overran first and had to go back and touch it.
Exactly. And then when he completed around third, he jumped on home. He got mauled by the other 25 teammates. Everybody's cameras going nuts in the crowd in St. Louis. His son, Matt, his name was written in like white chalk on his hat. First hug that came out was his son, Matt, hoisted him up. And then who comes running in from center field?
Sammy Sosa.
Or from the outfield, who's also in the running, Sammy Sosa. And what are we watching? We're watching two Titans trying to revive the sport of baseball, hugging each other in the middle of the game, doing Sammy Sosa's 35 things with the fingers and the chest pound. And everything for that moment was all surrounded by what? One act. In that one moment, Mark McGwire became just like all of us. He became human. We related to Mark McGwire in that moment because he was ecstatic about accomplishing something. And everybody in the city of St. Louis especially felt it, right?
It was emotion, and it was
he
was almost being a kid again, like hitting a special home run, the grand slam to win the World Series kind of thing. And you watch everybody jump around and be kids. And
exactly. So what this statement says right here, I'll equate this to McGwire. McGwire hits the homer, and as he's coming around, he doesn't miss first base. He waves to Sammy Sosa and says, "Don't bother coming home. Don't come home." He rounds home. He says to the guys, please, could have been a lot better. That one barely cleared the fence. Let's go back to the dugout.
That's fantastic. That's
what this comment
Barry Sanders
says to
did
me.
by being there before, I guess, even though that was never done before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barry Sanders, at least.
He would do it in a game. If it was to win the Super Bowl, Barry Sanders would spike the ball and jump up and down.
But it was colorful when he did it because at that time everybody did something stupid.
Everybody was so flashy.
Sanders was like, "Ooh, this guy's so stoic. It's kind of cool." Now everybody's like, "Shot 840, shot 860." Asshole! I haven't shot 850 since I was 24. Get out of here! Congratulations! They're like, "What are you congratulating me for?" I can't take him. So yeah, that was my last rant about that. So, and of course today I saw it again. Congratulations to the guy that bowled 858 with the Zen U, but another bump on a log, just no emotion in the video whatsoever. If I'm bowling 858, be lucky if I keep my pants on before I get off the approach.
I do that after a 500.
Yeah.
Dude, Prather shot at 300 at the USBC or the what do you call it? The Team USA trials, right? And he was, slapping everybody's hands and he was happy about it. I'm sure he's got 2,300 games, but
that's why I love watching Prather now. Chris, they say certain guys in certain sports, they just have the perfect mix. Prather's got it. I used to think Prather was boring. I love you, Jim. I used to think Prather was boring, but no, Prather's fiery when he needs to be, and he's fiery at the right times. So yeah, totally. He's one of my favorites to watch for both reasons now.
And I think he's literally the nicest guy in bowling. Like he should get the nicest guy or the player. I think we talked about this a few months ago. Whatever award it is for sportsmanship, like they should just name it after him because he's like the nicest guy ever.
Yeah, he's a goodie.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for this week. Good stuff. Johnny, you were on fire tonight. Ocho, you brought nothing to the table, but I mean, that's par for the course. But no, I feel bad because Ocho didn't really get a lot of chance to talk tonight because Johnny was just fucking on fire, which I knew Johnny was going to be on fire on this. So I still think you're slightly fettered. I think you're more unfettered on Over the Cap. Check that out every Tuesday night with host Mike Val on his YouTube channel or his Facebook page. But it's okay. It's okay. You got it all out last night. but I'm still glad you had enough fire tonight to entertain all of us, as you always do. Where can we find you on Twitter, Mr. Petraglia?
At JPJR07.
Ocho, where can we find you on Twitter, buddy?
At the DR Ocho.
And I am at Rad Rob Gaming on Instagram and Twitter. What are we going to do next week, Johnny? I mean,
well, next week it's the U.S. Open, isn't it? So I'm sure we gotta see how Jimmie Allen does after he gets out of the PTQ. No, you know what? Bowling is back. I mean, and we always like to identify everything that's going on in the bowling world. But truth be told, we're all lovers and fans of the sport. So let's keep it coming.
I'm not even going to try.
Don't do that.
We will be back next week for another edition of Straight Up 5 with the man right there, Johnny Petraglia Jr. and Ocho, I guess, if anybody cares. And I'm just here to suck as a host. We'll see you guys next week.